The school board in Hermosa Beach, California, has just hired a brand new diversity consultant. This consultant is going to be in charge of all things diversity for teachers and students, and she's white and female. Okay, so what you're telling me is, with all those African Americans out there clamoring for work, with all of those black social justice warriors out there who would be perfectly able to speak to the kids, the best you can do is another privileged white woman. Hypocrisy. I'm Dr. Duke, and this is The Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness of back to K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Before we start, I just want to remind our audience, A, that we love you, and B, that we're just not about only bringing you the problems in education, but also we provide solutions. Our Judeo-Christian online classical school is now enrolling students for the fall. I encourage everyone to request a free information packet at freedomforschool.com. That's freedomforschool.com. Get your kids out of the public schools and into a school that will take care of them. Take back control of your kids at FreedomProject Academy. All right, today we start in California, where the Hermosa Beach City School District has just hired their very own little diversity officer to train elementary and middle school teachers, along with little kids, about their white privilege. And if you take a look at this lady, this is her name right there. She is Sherry Atwater. Explain this to me, because this seems like a real problem. Why are so many of these white privileged teachers, why are so many of these woke diversity trainers white women? I mean, this is outrageous. I mean, what authority does she have to do this? By the definitions of Black Lives Matter, by the definitions of critical race theory, she is exactly the kind of person who needs to get her privileged white ass out of the picture and let minorities brainwash white people. This is a huge scam, like so many of these initiatives on college campuses, like women's studies and feminist groups on college campuses and gender conglomerates and all these identity politics about women and gender. It's nothing more than one great big scam to keep privileged white women at the center of everything that's going on. I go back to the picture here. This is outrageous. She's gonna get paid huge money that could be spent on employing 4 or 5 out of work, down on their luck, homeless black people. I mean, you're gonna pay her in all of her whiteness to lecture other white teachers and children about their privilege. And so Sherry Atwater, Los Angeles, California, she starts her whole argument by explaining, in all of her white seriousness, that white people are inherently racist. We've been told, as white people, we should shut up and stop telling people the best way to interact with minorities. So what gives you the right? Why do you deserve? Why are you getting paid to do this? And if you thought that wasn't bad enough, let Sherry speak, and we'll see what we think about her new job.
You're preparing students to go out into the world, a world of diversity of all types of identities, right? Particularly in elementary, but also in middle and high school. This is the time to recognize and build into the curriculum and to the opportunities and the spaces. So the underlying implicit biases that we all have. One of the favorite things I like to do in my multicultural counseling class, first question when I walk up there is, okay, raise your hand if you're racist, right? And raise your hand if you're not. And then I talk about how every single person in that room, no one's raised their hand that they're racist, and they're all telling the truth. But also by the end of this, lecture and discussion, you'll understand that you're telling the truth and you're also lying.
Yeah, so you are and you aren't, and you will and you won't. And notice how she assumes her audience is primarily white kids, because I would be very surprised if she's going to say, everybody in this room raise your hand if you're racist, and minority kids don't raise their hand. And by the end of the hour, I'm pretty sure she's not going to convince those minority kids that they are racist as well. Maybe it's written down somewhere. I'm so disgusted by this story. I didn't bother to look. I don't know that I want to know how much they're paying her for this, But this is a scam. This is a first world scam on the level of I'm the Nigerian prince and I got to smuggle money out of my bank account for freedom's sake. This is that kind of a level con by really, really vapid white women with really, really, really shady credentials. And as she says herself, did she raise her own hand, Sherry? When you ask for people to raise their hand if they're racism, you just got through saying, right, that we are all inherently biased. Does your pasty white hand go up? Do you bother explaining to minority kids why you're really not worthy to teach them anything about this? That you are part of the problem? You are the oppressor class? I kind of bet you don't, Sherry. So to all the school boards out there, and to all the idiot school board administrators and teachers and well-meaning superintendents who are going to take hundreds of thousands of dollars to hire specialists in this garbage, start with premise number one. If you're going to piss away the district's money, you're going to piss away money from taxpayers, then at least do it on minority people. At least pretend you're sharing some of this racist wealth, because this is just racist, this kind of counseling. That if you're going to let racism reign in your classroom, don't have white people spouting it. I mean, I thought that was the problem. Get black people in there and let them be racist. At least you can all pretend together that power makes me unable to be a racist. Let black people be the bigots. The rest of us will know what's going on. At least the money won't be going to another pampered, undereducated, under-intellectual, over-educated education clown with nothing more than hypocrisy in her heart and a big fat checkbook. All right, our good friend Dave Fiorazo just stopped by a few minutes ago to discuss his thoughts on a statement Joe Biden just made about the importance of hiring people to work within the federal government based exclusively on their status within the LGBTQ community. Let's take a look.
The Biden-Harris administration announced Monday they are, quote, proud to recognize the International Day against homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia, which was observed Monday, May 17. Now, the majority of Americans, including Christians who believe the Bible, need not apply. So, as American citizens are really concerned about important issues like the economy, government spending, taxes, gas shortages, some schools still closed, health care, the southern border crisis, Coronavirus propaganda, threats to our freedoms, turmoil in the Middle East, China, Russia, racial and political division, and a one-party complicit media, Joe Biden's handlers stress their commitment on the very important issue of standing with the LGBTQ community. Now, during the Obama administration, Joe Biden pledged his allegiance to the radical left and is now empowered. He's using the power of the presidency to unleash an even more godless agenda. He believes the lie that keeping boys out of girls' bathrooms, locker rooms, dressing rooms, and women's sports is discrimination. Biology is unjust, so follow the science. In his statement, Biden boasted about making, quote, historic appointments of LGBTQI plus individuals to the highest levels of our government. He also said this: we continue to implement my executive orders to advance equality and equity, and I continue to urge Congress to pass the Equality Act, which would confirm critical civil rights protections on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity for all Americans. End quote. Now, we reported on the Equality Act several times right here, and you need to understand how extreme and unconstitutional this is, but they keep pushing it. Now, notice that Biden is going through executive orders like toilet paper, signing an already historic amount of them. Now, a Republican president doing the same thing would be called a dictator, and his governing by pen would be challenged constantly by liberal media activists. So, what effect do these LGBTQ appointments and Biden's declarations have on the nation? Well, someone who knows better than most is Colorado cake artist and business owner Jack Phillips. He's back in the news because he has a brand new book coming out in a few weeks. It's called The Cost of My Faith: How a Decision in My Cake Shop Took Me to the Supreme Court. Now, in a recent interview with CBN News, Phillips, he explained that his reasoning for why he couldn't in good conscience design and bake a cake for two men celebrating their gay marriage. He said this, by the way. Go ahead.
The Bible is pretty clear that God made male and female, and he joined them together in marriage, and marriage was his design, his idea. I'm not smart enough to do anything like that. And he created it unique and special between a man and a woman, and any other view of that would go against biblical principles.
He also said that one of the commissioners told him religious freedom was, quote, a despicable piece of rhetoric used to justify things like slavery and the Holocaust. Really? Now, don't forget that the Colorado Commission gave Phillips an ultimatum. Either bake the gay wedding cake or stop making cakes altogether. Get out of business, Jack. So much for tolerance. The leftist commission also ruled Jack Phillips' staff go through mandatory re-education to teach them that the baker was wrong and that believing the Bible is discriminatory. Well, thankfully, the Supreme Court ended up ruling in his favor and on the side of religious freedom, but Joe Biden Democrats think that was wrong, and Phillips should have been punished. This administration won't think twice about discriminating against you and me if we resist. Now, think about this for a minute. How our founders, our early presidents in America, or patriots would react if they heard a U.S. president deny God, creation, the Bible, and promote being lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or whatever. Imagine. Wow. Anyway, finally, in catering further to the radical left, Biden also stated this: everyone is entitled to dignity and equality, no matter who they are, whom they love, or how they identify. And we will continue to engage with allies and partners to advance the human rights of LGBTQI plus people here at home and in all corners of the world. Dignity for all, yes, but they've redefined equality and equity. Notice that. Pay attention from now on. Again, a majority of Americans need not apply. An overwhelming majority. They mean, the Biden administration means special rights, not equal rights. Also notice he almost alludes to a war, saying the Biden administration will engage with allies to advance this agenda, right? So my question is, what about the human rights of Christians, conservatives, independents, Republicans, and other Americans who don't go along with this, who actually believe in science and biology? We are reaping what we have sown in elections in America for decades now. This is the fruit. And this is what happens when one party thinks our rights come from government and not from Almighty God. Hey, please remember to check out my brand new book, Canceling Christianity. It's been #1 on Amazon in religious intolerance and persecution categories. Appreciate your support. And God bless you. Keep speaking the truth about things that matter.
The time has come, the time that comes every day when we finally break away from the idiocy of what's going on in education in America, and we spend a little bit of time on real education. This is the words and the attitude, the sass of H.L. Mencken. He was not afraid to tell anybody anything. Now, again, in full disclosure, I disagree with some of his political positions. I think he's a liberal with an intellect, which means he's not a progressive. Some of his views on socialism and government and other things, I might differ with him. But he is one of our great middle finger to the establishment guys. One of these guys, like Mark Twain and others, who will look a corrupt government in the face and tell it what it is. And for that, I respect him. Take a look at our quotes today from H.L. Mencken. The urge to save humanity is almost always only a false face for the urge to rule it. 2 words: climate change. Let me repeat the quote, and you just think about these 2 words: climate change. The urge to save humanity is almost always only a false face for the urge to rule over it. Anthony Fauci. 2 words. Next quote. This is a very profound one. The trouble with communism is communists. The trouble with Christianity is Christians. And that's an interesting argument to make. But there's a slight difference in the words. The problem with communism is communists, right? Communists follow the rules of communism. The idea is bad. The idea of communism doesn't work. The trouble with communism is how it reflects itself in communists, just as the trouble with Christianity is Christians, right? The difference is that most Christians behave differently than their religion calls them to behave. Most Christians embarrass Christianity by being poor Christians, unwilling to sacrifice and to love. But communism, the problem with communism is the fact that communists behave exactly according to communism. That's the problem. In other words, Christianity is a good idea ruined by bad people, whereas communism, by definition, is such a bad idea that simply by following through as communists do, they reveal what they're all about. And how about this last one? An idealist is one who, on noticing that roses smell better than cabbage, concludes that it will also make better soup. That's so government, isn't it? So very much Joe Biden's government. An idealist is somebody who, after smelling roses and smelling cabbage, says, hey, roses smell so much better than cabbage. Let's make soup out of roses without any practical concerns whatsoever. What a wonderful way to satirize the utopian dreamers of our society, most of whom are vapid, airtight left-wingers. All right, just a quick reminder that the best way to access our content is to download our Freedom Project Media app absolutely free. Simply search Freedom Project in your app store and make sure once you download that free app, you allow us, click the button, and we will send you you don't even have to lift a finger. We will transport our 18 shows a week directly to you. And if you enjoy our content, then please consider the Patriot Club. Your tax-deductible donation allows us to bring you these kinds of stories every day. Simply visit patriotclub.us and we will ship you this attractive tumbler as a thank you. That's patriotclub.us. Now, as we are wont to do at the end of a week, we take a moment to show some love to our Patriot Club members. Today, we give a shout out to Ricky from Lubbock, Texas. Thanks for supporting us. Ricky, don't choke on all that dust. And that's going to do it for this show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.